Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Today I have a big announcement to make regarding the membership and donation function on my website. Then I will discuss a question that has puzzled many people for a long time. Why hasn't the Chinese economy collapsed despite all the crises? First of all, I'm so excited to announce that I have set up a membership and donation function on my website at jenniferzengblog.com so that I can start creating and offering exclusive content and services for members, as well as fight back against the big tech companies' censorship and suppression. Benefits for members include, but are not limited to: 1. Members only script and audio file of each show. 2. Members only behind the scenes stories, photos, and videos. 3. Members can submit questions and subject suggestions for me to answer or to do programs on, and I will do live Q&A after enough questions are submitted. 4. First 50 members can get a free signed copy of Magnificence magazine with me featured as the cover story. I started my channel Inconvenient Truths in April last year during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic to tell the truth about the virus, about China, the Chinese Communist Party, and the world. Since then, I've created hundreds of videos, and the feedback is overwhelmingly positive and encouraging. Some say I have saved an astronomical number of lives. Some say I'm key in making this world a better place. Some say my life is a gift to the world. Some say the information I offer is always ahead of mainstream media, etc. The most encouraging feedback I got is from a teddy bear maker in Alaska, because she learned the truth about the pandemic from me early enough. She was able to move faster than others and turned her factory into a fabric mask maker before everyone was rushing to buy masks. And this has made a world of difference for both her and her employees. However, unfortunately, because of the big tech companies' censorship and suppression, the impact I'm making is still limited, and I always struggle to cover costs so that I can survive. The views of my videos suddenly dropped by almost 90% since January this year, and the number of my subscribers almost stopped growing at all. Therefore, in order to spread the truth, to fight back against big tech, I do need your support. So please sign up or make a donation so that more people can be helped through your generosity. We are living in an unprecedented time in a fast-changing world, and the truth does matter. Sign up or donate. I do count on you. Thank you so much on behalf of all my audience. Now, let's move to our next topic. Why hasn't the Chinese economy collapsed? Recently, we've heard enough bad news about the Chinese economy, such as the collapsing real estate market, the large-scale power outage, much lower GDP growth, etc. The three major engines for the Chinese economy, which are the real estate market, consumption, and exports, are all encountering big problems, and some economists are expecting worse things to happen soon. Actually, as early as 2001, China specialist and author Gordon Chang wrote a book, The Coming Collapse of China. He predicted that China's economy would collapse in the near future. However, after so many years, the Chinese economy still has not collapsed, And some Chinese people have crafted a special term, 崩而不溃, for this kind of situation, which can be translated as collapsing but has not collapsed yet, or always in crisis but won't collapse. Why hasn't the Chinese economy collapsed yet, although according to normal economic theories, it should have long ago? Chinese scholar and economist He Qinglian did some research and found the secret. It is because demand from the US is supporting it. I'm sure many of you must have read the news that in Los Angeles, hundreds of thousands shipping containers were waiting to be offloaded off the port. But there were not enough workers to unload these containers, nor enough truck drivers to drive the goods away. In the meantime, some stores are experiencing a shortage of goods, and people found that the US was caught in a supply chain crisis. Not only that, more than 3 years after the US imposed significant punitive tariffs on China, the latest statistics show that China's exports to the US have begun to climb sharply so far this year. So according to China Customs statistics, China's exports to the US have been increasing since February, rising steadily from more than 230 billion yuan in February to more than 370 billion yuan last month. On a year-over-year basis, the monthly trade surplus with the US set a new record last month with 42 billion US dollars, a year-over-year increase of almost 30%. In the first 8 months of this year, China's total import and export value is about 4 trillion US dollars, up about 23% year-on-year, with a trade plus of 58 billion US dollars, up 2.2 year-on-year. And Asia, the European Union, the United States, and Japan are China's first, second, third, and fourth largest trading partners. Among them, China's trade surplus with Asia is 55.34 billion US dollars, an increase of 8%. Trade plus with the EU is 117.8 billion US dollars, an increase of 21.2%. China's trade deficit with Japan is 28 billion US dollars, an increase of 47.8%. And the total value of trade between China and the US in the first 8 months of this year is about 480 billion US dollars, an increase of 55.8%. Among them, exports to the US is 360 billion US dollars, an increase of 22%. Imports from the US is 178 billion, an increase of 36.5%. This means that China's trade surplus with the United States is about 240 billion yuan, an increase of 16.9%, a figure higher than Asia's 57 billion US dollars, but also higher than the EU's 117 billion. So to put it another way, the US trade deficit with China is the highest among all of China's trade partners. So these are the figures from the Chinese side. The US figures are slightly different, but not by much. So both the US and Chinese data show strong growth in China's exports to the US. So, according to He Qinlian, the demand from the US is what really sustains the Chinese economy and all else. And the current supply chain crisis in the US originates from the heavy dependence on China's industrial chain. He Qinlian said there is now some belated recognition of this in the US. Squada Kota, a professor at the University of Michigan, and Thomas Manhani, an expert at the industry think tank M. Foresight, had published a joint study. Manufacturing Prosperity, a bold strategy for national wealth and security in June 2018. Their conclusion was that U.S. foreign dependency is not limited to low-cost goods. It extends to the upper part of the value chain, and China is key to much of it. The event here makes their strategy of U.S. offshore production is in advanced manufacturing has become invent there, make there. So the United States must make bold steps to stop this from developing further and rebuild domestic manufacturing strength in order to grow national health and wealth and ensure economic security. The authors suggested that these bold steps require a comprehensive strategy and significant and sustained public and private investment. And these investments should focus on research and manufacturing innovation. Small and medium-sized manufacturers should be empowered, and it is most important to develop domestic engineering talent within the US, etc. They said if the US does not make such a choice, it will face continued degradation of innovation and manufacturing capabilities, resulting in a second-rate economy that is unable to support a top-tier military. So their study is very realistic and long-term in its thinking. Unfortunately, He Qinlian said, both the U.S. business and political communities are becoming more and more short-sighted, with little consideration given to strategic layouts beyond 3 years. And in the words of Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, bills that do not bring in voters are not even considered. Also, almost all of the current Biden administration's bills that supposedly bring in voters are bills about how to divide the cake, not about where the materials to make the cake will come from or how the materials can be sustained. So, He Qinlian argues China's economy has never been as prosperous as Western investment bankers predicted. That is because of the CCP's very short-sighted choice of development methods and paths. So there are bound to be hidden dangers in the short-lived boom, such as in the real estate market. However, on the other hand, China's economy will not collapse in an instant either, as some other people have predicted. The current state of US-China trade shows made in China needs the US market, and the US won't be able to find an alternative to China for a while, and the strong demand from the US has provided the Chinese economy with a source of vitality. He Qinlian says, as capital always pursues profits, so the U.S. business community has never intended to abandon the Chinese market. This is why the Chinese economy has survived up to now and for some time to come, despite all the crises. If you are still not convinced of this, these are some amazing figures. The U.S. Department of Commerce data show that from last November to April this year, suppliers of the CCP's Huawei received 113 export licenses with a total value of about 61 billion US dollars. CCP's Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corp. SMIC suppliers received 188 export licenses with a total value of 42 billion US dollars. Please note that Huawei and SMIC were placed on the US trade blacklist and the so-called entity list in May 2019 and December 2020. In the meantime, in Huawei's headquarters in China, Huawei's CFO Meng Wanzhou was welcomed back to work like a hero as a queen after being released from Canada. Let's watch a short video. Well, I don't know what you think after watching this video. According to Chinese media, Meng Wanzhou's father, the founder of Huawei, predicted her comeback in 2019. He said, the fact that Meng Wanzhou experienced some ordeals will greatly enhance her will, which is a great wealth for her. She will come back to still be Huawei's CFO, of course, a much stronger CFO. So it turns out that what he predicted was realized, right? I'm not sure what kind of negotiations and deals have been made among the US, China, and Canada, but the facts are Meng Wanzhou did violate US laws, and she admitted it. The CCP released 2 Canadians and allowed 2 Chinese Americans to return to the US after forbidding them from leaving for 3 years. Meng Wanzhou's violation of law brought losses to the US, and the CCP's arrest of the 2 Canadians brought huge suffering to the 2 Canadians and their families. The CCP lost nothing. It just kidnapped some Canadians and then used their lives as ransom money to exchange Meng Wanzhou. And it seems the CCP's hostage diplomacy worked very well. Again, just like a CCP scholar once shamelessly said that a win-win relationship with China means China wins twice. I really don't know what to say. If the CCP is this evil, it is because we allow it. Well, that's all for today. Please don't forget to sign up for membership at my website so that we can better stay connected, spread the truth, and fight back against the censorship together. Please also subscribe to and share my channel if you haven't. Thank you. See you soon.